Now, let's bring you the latest on the situation in Belarus, because people there are gathering once again to protest against the rule of President Alexander Lukashenko, and also to protest against the re-election of which they say he rigged a fortnight ago. We can just show you the latest live pictures now from Minsk, the capital of Belarus, where demonstrators have gathered. Demonstrations have been pretty much a daily occurrence throughout the country since that election a couple of weeks ago, which the demonstrators say, as I say, were rigged. The protesters are calling for an end to police violence, and also for Mr. Lukashenko, who is Europe's longest-serving leader, some would say dictator, to step down. Today's demonstration comes as exiled opposition figurehead Svetlana Tikhanovskaya urged protesters to maintain their momentum and said that Belarusians had lost their fear, that Mr. Lukashenko had no choice now but to engage with the opposition. Well, meanwhile, NATO has denied Mr. Lukashenko's claim that it is building up forces along the border with Belarus. It all comes after President Lukashenko accused what he described as foreign powers of aiding the protest movement. Let's go to Jonah Fisher, our correspondent in Minsk, with the very latest. Jonah, I hope you can hear me. I know the crowds are gathering there, and it's pretty tense because the security forces are very much on standby there.
Yeah, that's right. I'm in Independence Square, right in the centre of Minsk. This is the gathering point for today's demonstration. You can see people behind me, chanting "Long live Belarus." Probably about 5,000 people or so here at the moment. We're expecting more to come. What you cannot see here is the riot police. There is a very significant riot police and military presence in the streets around this square. In one street alone, I counted at least 25 vehicles. So a show of force, certainly, from President Lukashenko. It is unclear at the moment as to whether they are going to intervene to stop this protest, this rally taking place. About half an hour or so ago, we had announcements over loudspeakers saying that this was illegal and that they were planning to disperse this demonstration. It hasn't deterred people from gathering here, so there is an element of tension in the air, people unsure really whether they're going to be allowed to have this demonstration or not.
And Jonah, what is your assessment? We're seeing this huge display of people power, but do you think Mr. Lukashenko can ride this out because he still has the key levers of power?
Yeah, so far today, it's not a huge demonstration of people power. It may turn into that over the next couple of hours. We've had sizable demonstrations every night and during some of the days for the last 2 weeks. We've also had strikes, but what we haven't had is any sign of President Lukashenko's grip over the security apparatus here weakening. He's been in power for 20 years. He's effectively built the security apparatus, appointed all these key people, and there is no sign at the moment that anyone is saying to him, look, you've lost the support of the people here, which appears to be the case. It's time for you to go. For now, he seems to have a pretty firm grip on that, and certainly from the rhetoric from President Lukashenko in the last few days, he has no intention of going.
And what about the role of Russia, President Putin? I mean, if he decided that it was time for Mr. Lukashenko to go, would that be crucial? Would that be pivotal?
Yeah, that would probably be decisive. If the feeling was in Moscow that the way to have a transition that could be managed, that President Lukashenko was so unpopular here that there was really no way back for him, it is possible that President Putin would suggest, indeed, possibly push through the idea that Mr. Lukashenko should be pushed to one side and someone else who is acceptable to Russia put in their place. What Vladimir Putin doesn't want to have happen here is for this to turn into a full-scale people's revolution, to have someone who is a really unknown quantity take over as president here, because, of course, President Putin himself is acutely aware that anything that happens here in Belarus might well be a precedent, an example of what might happen closer to home in Russia.
Jonah, thank you, and we'll talk to you again later. Jonah Fisher reporting now live from Minsk. And we can also get the thoughts of Professor Elena Korosteleva, who's director of the Global Europe Centre at the University of Kent. Thank you for being with us. So we're seeing yet more demonstrations in Belarus, but same question as I asked Jonah, really, our correspondent. Can Mr. Lukashenko ride this out? Can he survive these demonstrations?
Thank you, and I fully agree with your correspondent. The tensions are growing. Demonstrations have not stopped. They've been continuing for 2 weeks, and these are tensions between the regime and protesters. I think there is no way back to the point of departure, because people are clearly showed their disapproval of all the violence, all the abuse, lies, intimidation, and so on. So what is important now is to try and find, through the dialogue, try to find the point of exit for Lukashenko and in terms of organizing new elections.
But he doesn't look like he's in any mood to change his mind, to have new elections or to step down. And we're actually just hearing that the Belarus army are going to take over responsibility for protecting national memorials. Now, that is an interesting switch, because that has been the responsibility of the police. Now it's going to be the army. And it does show, doesn't it, that Mr. Lukashenko is increasingly perhaps turning to the army.
Well, that's precisely the point of no return. Well, basically, Lukashenko can only now maintain his power by force. And the only way to stop all that and further escalation of force and violence is perhaps indeed for everyone to come to the round table, including perhaps with the help of the President Putin, to find the point which will be acceptable to everyone. For example, President Zelensky this morning also commented that, organizing new elections where everyone can participate with the presence of international observers could be a way forward, just to ensure parity for every possible candidate.
But he's been in power for, what, more than a quarter of a century now?
Exactly.
I mean, how much longer do you think he can survive?
I don't think he will survive at all now, because, as I say, he lost all political legitimacy. He spent his political capital. So he is now gripping to power only through force. And force cannot last long. It may end in the bloodshed, but it is in everyone's interest to try and stop the bloodshed through dialogue and negotiation. And I'm sure he will see that. And but of course, international support here is very important.
Well, we'll see what happens. Very good to get your analysis, Professor Elena Korosteleva there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Look at our very latest